Part 68. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 671. At the port of Avalon, after Anilu's ship stopped steadily, he took Princess Wai and got off the ship. As for Kuina, Saran, and others that they met in the East China Sea before, Anilu did not have a deep friendship with him, and there was no need to have a deep friendship with him. It was nothing more than seeing some outstanding seedlings. If he had nothing else to do, he might try to deceive her and see if he could be abducted by them. But at that time, he already knew that Guyuna planned to join the navy. At the same time, he had more important things to deal with, so he left. Princess Wai came to the New World for the first time. Along the way, she became somewhat familiar with Anilu, and saw a lot of scenery that she had never seen before. The sudden change of weather in the New World, the magnificent Fishman Island, and the powerful deterrent power of the Warhammer pirates. Wherever it goes, no one dares to stop it. This also made Wai feel hot in her heart. Such a powerful Warhammer pirates might really be able to help her get revenge. In fact, Crocodile had already received the news from Bonus. It said that Princess Vivi was taken away by Enel of the Warhammer pirates. Protected by the Warhammer pirates, Crocodile was naturally in a very unhappy mood at that time. He was not in the right position, and he was already a little uneasy in his heart. He also forcibly brought Alabasta into a new world. The reputation he had accumulated in the past for bringing order to order has been completely consumed. In the past, the people of Alabasta considered him a national hero, helping to fight pirates and so on. Now, everyone knows that Crocodile is a careerist and an evil pirate. However, due to Crocodile's power, Alabasta eventually succumbed to Crocodile's power. Although the world government does not recognize Crocodile's right to rule Alabasta, Crocodile does not care whether the world government recognizes it or not. I have become a pirate, and I no longer want to be the king of the Shichibukai. Do you care whether you admit it or not? Is your brain sick? But this does not mean that Crocodile will not pay attention to Wai, the last bloodline of the Nefertali clan. The queen's reign is not something unthinkable in this world. On the contrary, it is reasonable and legal. And the only one who can threaten his rule in Alabasta from the perspective of legitimacy is Wai. Whether she is controlled by the world government or someone else, she is still a hidden danger to him. That's why Crocodile spared no effort to eradicate the problem. If he hadn't entered the New World at that time and killed the Big Mom pirates, Nefertali Cobra finally realized the evil and terror of Crocodile and sent Princess Vivi away before he came back. Crocodile had already killed her, how could he just let her run away? Now, this fugitive princess has fallen into the hands of the Warhammer pirates, and Crocodile is of course very unhappy. He didn't know that this was a bargaining chip Orgrim used to make deals with the world government. I just thought that these were the shackles Orgrim used to control him. With Princess Vivi as a threat, if Crocodile dares to be disobedient, the Warhammer pirates may support Princess Vivi to become the Queen of Alabasta and carry out the restoration movement, right? Although he was unhappy, Crocodile also understood that it was reasonable for Orgrim to be wary of him and take action. Anilu didn't kill his subordinates, which was considered a great honor. He couldn't force Orgrim to do anything, let alone have the qualifications. Therefore, the matter happened for so long, and Crocodile showed no expression or reaction at all, just as if the matter did not exist. He endured it, just as he had endured the rumors for so many years. This time, he also endured it. If you are not strong enough, you will have to suffer. In short, at least for now, there is no conflict between Crocodile and the Warhammer pirates because of this matter. Looking at the prosperous and busy port under the night sky, and looking at the towering and brightly lit buildings outside the port, all these prove that Avalon is prosperous and wealthy. Wai was very shocked. Although she had heard that Avalon was the pearl of the New World, she always believed that Alabasta, the oldest country in the world and the cradle of human civilization, and its capital, Albina, would definitely not be better than Albina. Wallonia is worse. But when I arrived in Avalon, I realized that perhaps in terms of culture and heritage, Albina, as the capital of the Millennium Dynasty, was much better than Avalon. It can be seen from the perspective of population, prosperity, and vitality. The 1,000-year-old capital has become old. And Avalon seems to represent new vitality. Is this really pirate territory? How can it be? Wei said with some disbelief. Aniru patted her shoulder with a smile and said, I told you many times on the way, don't treat us as ordinary pirates, we are the Warhammer pirates, the Warhammer pirates who have created miracles. The path we are taking has no future, but we are opening up a new pirate road. Looking at the port that was constantly handling ships, Wei said, have ships always been coming in and out here so frequently? Of course, Avalon is the pearl of the New World, running through almost all the economic lifelines of the New World. Even the franchise countries under the world government must rely on our, however, these days are a bit special. There is a meeting of cotters. The cotters in various sea areas who have nothing to do will return to Avalon, so there are more ships, Enilu said. What are you doing back? Do you have any big plans? Wei asked very curiously. Enilu smiled again, but he didn't hide it from her, because it was not a big deal. It's nothing, just keeping in touch with each other. After all, we are usually very busy. Of course, if something happens, you don't have to come back. It all depends on the individual. In most cases, cotters who have nothing to do will come back. Enel explained. After saying that, he just took Wei out of the exclusive port of the Warhammer pirates. As soon as I went out, I happened to see Sphinx, an irritable little Lolita, waiting for someone here. Anilu had a touch of surprise on his face and waved Sphinx, are you waiting for me? I'm back. Sphinx was kicking the stone pillars on the pier boredly at this time. After hearing someone calling her, she turned around and looked with a touch of surprise on her face. Anilu, are you coming back today? Well, Anilu's expression is a little awkward. It turns out he's not waiting for me. Well, I just happened to come back today, who are you waiting for? Anilu asked. Haha, this is Andres. Sphinx looked at the little blue-haired girl following Anilu, and was about to speak, but felt that it was better not to get involved in this matter, so as not to be caught and spanked by Orgrim, so she stopped. And said, waiting for Mihawk. Lord Mihawk. Anilu was stunned for a moment, and looked at the Sphinx strangely. I wonder when this grumpy loli had such a good relationship with Mihawk? Speaking of which, Mihawk-sama hasn't been back for a while, right? I don't know where to wander? Well, I'm going to start taking up kendo recently, and I want to ask him some questions, Sphinx said matter-of-factly. All the people in Anilu were dumbfounded. Starting kendo? Don't you think it's too late? And why? Don't you like explosions and flames? Anilu asked. Why is it too late? Master Chui once said that the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and now? This shows that as long as you are determined, it is never too late. As for why, I feel that I am always lacking something in close combat, so I am going to try my hand at swordsmanship with my ability, and forget it if I don't succeed, the Sphinx chirped. Orgrim didn't expect that some people would actually drink the chicken soup he occasionally made. After hearing this, Anilu nodded and said, that's true. Master Chui's words are indeed so profound, but my knowledge is shallow. Should I say that he deserves to be the biggest hammer fan after Rengar? Although the Sphinx looks like it is not doing its job most of the time. In fact, this was indeed the case. After all, with her out-of-touch personality, Orgrim and Beckman did not dare to leave anything important to her. However, in terms of personal strength, Sphinx is really perseverant. Over the years, He has never given up and his strength is constantly improving. Even if she awakens her ability, it cannot satisfy her. Perhaps, she has always been thinking about surpassing Orgrim, catching Orgrim, holding him on her lap and spanking him, right? Is this what motivates her? While the two were chatting, Mihawk's figure slowly walked out of the port. This time, he was out for more than a year. After meeting that unfortunate guy Shanks, Mihawk has been wandering around. After all, Andrest also left. He returned to Avalon and had nothing to do. He just thought that his kendo gym was alone again and he should try to see if he could find some good seeds or something. It turned out that it was not so easy to find, and Mihawk found nothing. But he wasn't disappointed either, he just thought he was going to sea to relax. Sphinx, Enel, you are all here. You said you wanted to ask me something before. What was it? Mihawk said hello first, and then went straight to the topic. Sphinx said excitedly, teach me the way of the sword, Mihawk. Mihawk was stunned for a moment, then asked, are you planning to change your career to become a swordsman? No, I just want to learn some close combat methods for self-defense. I have learned domineering, 6 styles, etc. Now, I also want to learn kendo, so that I can better coordinate with my abilities. Stand up, said the Sphinx. That's it, then you don't have to look for me. You are not sincere about swords. There is nothing to learn from me. You can just find some swordsman and learn some moves and techniques, Mihawk said. Sphinx didn't bother with anything after hearing this. He smacked his lips and said, that's it, oh well. She knew that although Mihawk had a cold face, he actually had a warm heart. When he said there was nothing to learn, it was definitely not because he was clumsy or did not want to teach. He probably just felt that it was not suitable for him. As the #1 swordsman, what he said must be its level, so the Sphinx doesn't get entangled. This time I went to sea, but I couldn't find any suitable kendo seedlings. Mihawk shook his head regretfully and said. I met them in the East China Sea. One was named Kuina and the other was Rorano Zoro. Although I don't know much about swordsmanship, I could tell that those two guys were very talented in swordsmanship. Maybe they were too. The person you call honest with the sword, Enelu said with a smile. Mihawk's eyes lit up and he said, really? Certainly, Enelu nodded and said. Are they still in the East China Sea? Mihawk asked again. I don't know about this. It should be there, right? But I heard that they came from Ishind Dojo. Enelu thought for a while and then said. That's it, Ishind Dojo, Mihawk murmured, remembered it in his heart, and then said, I won't go up, take my leave. Hello. Mihawk, are you leaving now? The Sphinx was shocked and asked quickly. Well, I'm going to visit the East China Sea, Mihawk said without hesitation. As soon as he finished speaking, the prodigal didn't hesitate at all and turned around and left. Princess Wei was also stunned at this time. Is this the rumored world's greatest swordsman? There is a reward. Gold, the eagle of 1,680,000,000 Bailey's Joricole, Mihawk. Isn't it too chic? On the way here, Wei gained a lot of knowledge about the Warhammer pirates. Naturally, she also knew that after Mihawk lost the battle for the throne of the New World, the bounty reached 1.68 billion Baileys. This is an extremely high bounty. But in fact, no one in the Warhammer pirates felt that this was in line with Mihawk's worth. In terms of strength, Mihawk is definitely more than this price. However, because he has a cold personality and has never done anything too evil, and he did not play a major role in the war, the increase in bounty is not high. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 672. Mihawk came and left in a hurry. He didn't even take a look at the island, patted his butt and left. Although Princess Wei was surprised, it seemed that Enel and Sphinx had no reaction at all. It seems that he has become accustomed to the dissolute behavior of the first swordsman. Hey, leave him alone, he just picked you up, let's go. Sphinx waved his hand and said. Enelu nodded and said with a smile, okay, let's go. Wai Wei was also observing the Sphinx at this time. The rampage lowly Sphinx is also famous in the world. Although she still looks like a lowly, she seems to be younger than herself. But Wai Wei knew very well that the Sphinx had been a pirate for longer than herself. Before she was born, the Sphinx was already a powerful figure in the New World. Back then, she was under the command of the Golden Lion Shiki, and now she is under the command of the King of the Night. I have to say that Sphinx's luck is really good. She has always followed the New World. Where is the Overlord? Bounty, 1.587 billion Baileys. Wai Wei thought about the Sphinx's latest bounty in her mind. The same is true for my hawk. Although the Sphinx fought, it was extremely crazy. But in fact, although she behaves erratically in daily life, she is not that evil. In the past few years, her biggest interest has been to hang out in various casinos and become a gambler. In the previous war, he and my hawk participated in the Cake Island incident and had no other outstanding performance, so the bounty did not rise very high. Although he only came into contact with the three major leaders of the Warhammer pirates, Enel, Sphinx, and my hawk. But at this time, Wai Wei's impression of the Warhammer pirates had also changed a lot. She compared crocodiles' cotters and found that the gap between the two sides was not just a gap in strength and bounty. There are also differences in attitude. The people of the Warhammer pirates are not that domineering. In terms of status, there is no doubt that they are much higher and more powerful than those under Crocodile. But when they come into contact, there is no feeling of superiority. On the contrary, the cotters under Crocodile were not very capable and were forced to pretend to fly. For example, that Mr. 5 Jim was a guy who was easily beaten by Guyuna, but his personality was quite high. At first, Wai Wei was puzzled and couldn't understand why. But after walking for a while, she saw the bustling streets of Avalon where various races shuttled back and forth, and looked at the confident smiles on their faces. She understood immediately because the people of the Warhammer pirates had their confidence engraved in their bones. There is no need to show off status, power, strength, or anything like that. Everything that is beyond the reach of ordinary people is just ordinary to them. There is no need to put on any posture when dealing with anyone, because no one will judge them based on their posture. All you have to do is show up, even if you're wearing fancy pants, and you're still a strong person. Are many people coming back this time? Enelu followed the Sphinx and asked. The Sphinx waved his hand and said no one has come back. Rengar is very busy in the Golden City. The same is true for Tzalo and the others. Dover, it seems that they are helping Mr. Hammer with something. Gangplank and the others are already on the island. That bastard woman Dai Pen is back, Lucci has gone out, and Andre and the others have all gone to sea. In short, there aren't many people, Mr. Zui thought. In the evening, it would be enough if we all have a meal together. Dr. Nightingale and the others didn't come back either? Where is Mr. Barrett? Enelu asked again. No, it is said that Boss Shiji seems to have something important to do, so Nightingale and the others are busy there. According to Barrett, he went to Wano country to meet Kaido on behalf of Lord Hammer, the Sphinx said very casually. See Kaido? Do what? Do we have a new cooperation with Kaido? Enelu asked again. No, but after all, Yamato went to sea with Andre. As Yamato's biological father, Kaido must of course care about it and invite Lord Sui to visit Wano country. But as you know, Lord Sui has always been a little bit jealous of Kaido's boss. Anyway, that's it, and then leave the matter to Barrett, the Sphinx said with a smile. It's really beyond my expectation that Mr. Barrett would take on such an errand task, Enelu said with a smile. Well, he said he was going to fight Kaido, see how powerful the strongest creature is and so on. Sphinx also said a little funny. This is understandable. Enelu touched his chin and said. Ah, by the way, you don't know that yet, right? More than 2 months ago, Mr. Hammer and Barrett had a fight in a windless zone, 2 of the islands were destroyed. Barrett was at a disadvantage throughout the whole process and was subdued by Hammer. Sphinx said with some excitement. Barrett has always wanted to challenge Orgrim's power. In fact, this is not the first time they have done so. Since O'Hara, every few years, Barrett will challenge Orgrim. But as expected, they all end in failure. However, before, Barrett could more or less keep up with Orgrim's strength. This time, he was crushed almost the whole way. The beating had no temper at all. No, now instead of grabbing Orgrim to challenge, he is going to pinch Kaido, the soft persimmon. But thinking about it, he should be worse than Kaido, right? Sphinx and Enelu were walking and chatting in front. Princess Waiwei, who was following them, felt a surge in her heart. The circles were different, and the things they were talking about were completely different. Look, Enelu and Enelu were talking. Sphinx, open and shut your mouth. The names of people brought out are all people on the sea, stamping their feet, shaking 3 times in the tsunami. Rob Lucci has a bounty of 650 million belly. The 4 emperors and 100 beasts. Kaido is a man with a bounty of 3.97 billion baileys. He should also be a much stronger man than Crocodile. After all, the veteran powerhouse of the New World has more qualifications than Orgrim, the pirate overlord. Old. But he seems to be a good friend of Orgrim. There are often good gossips about the 2 brothers in the sea, but what did the Sphinx mean just now? It seems that there has been a gap between them recently. Waiwei was very confused. How did she know that Kaido thought he was good friends with Orgrim, but Orgrim had always avoided it? The bloody lion Rengar, the leader of the Warhammer pirates among them, he is known as the evil butcher, second only to Orgrim. The bounty is as high as 1.7 billion belly. Judging from the bounty alone, he is more powerful than the Sphinx and the world's greatest swordsman Joruk. Mihawk looks even more powerful. In fact, it's just because Rengar's evil level is too high. In the previous war, he let himself go as soon as he came out of Avalon. After conquering an island, he slaughtered an island, and after the Battle of Hegemony, according to Beckman's Population Tribute Action Plan, he also took action to eliminate 2 countries that were members of the world government. In short, this is a butcher with blood in his hands, super an evil pirate. A murderer in the New World. But now, he has been transferred to the Golden City to work as a security guard. I hope the luxury there can wash away some of his murderous intentions. As for Doflamingo, needless to say, he is still the same as before. With 547 million baileys, he has become the king of the Shishibukai. As long as the world government does not strip him of his title, he will get no reward no matter what he does. It won't move. As for Gangplank, Waiwei was not very familiar with it. In fact, Felix Plank's name is only circulated among the top people. It is known that he is Avalon's intelligence chief, and his contribution to the Warhammer pirates is hidden. The ordinary people on the sea had no impression of him, and they didn't know what big things he had done. So Waiwei only knew that Gangplank's bounty was 630 million belly. Although it sounds quite powerful, if there are other people setting it off, it actually looks small. She does know about Katarina Depin, who was once called the most vicious female pirate in history and likes to collect the heads of beautiful girls. In fact, Dai Peng still has this bad habit. Therefore, Orgrim and others never visited her courtyard. Because it's like a haunted house. There might be a dead person's head somewhere in the corner. Waiwei was also a little worried. She wondered if this evil female pirate with a bounty of 1.2 billion belly would twist her head off too. Probably not. As for Douglas Barrett, Wai Wei didn't know much about him either. She had only heard that this man had been on the ship of Pirate King Roger. Later, he left again, and after a turnaround, he joined Orgrim's command and became a major leader of the Warhammer pirates. And he is also the legendary general of the Avalon Pirate Legion. Barrett's bounty is not very high and is far from worthy of his strength. It's just 1.3 billion Baileys. This may be related to his low profile. On weekdays, he doesn't go out for activities in Avalon. Most of the time he lives in the military camp by himself, and he doesn't like to go out and cause trouble. So the presence is not high. The Navy thinks that the total bounty of the Warhammer pirates is already too much. Therefore, except for the irrepressible people like Orgrim, the bounties of the others are more or less suppressed. Fortunately, at this point, Orgrim and the others no longer care about the level of these bounties. What if we give 10 billion? If they were given 10 belly, would anyone dare to look down upon them? Non-existent. After passing through the bustling city, the crowds gradually became sparse, and Wai Wei keenly discovered that there were more alert forces around her. There is no doubt that they have arrived at the core area of the Warhammer pirates. Not long after, a huge palace complex appeared in Wai Wei's sight. The towering city wall looks extremely heavy. The plaque on the city gate has the 4 characters "City that never sleeps" written on it. It seems that this is Avalon, the city that never sleeps. The previous prosperity was just ancillary to this place. As the oldest country of mankind, descended from 20 kings, she is the last princess of the Alabasta Nefertali clan. Wai Wei has been favored by thousands of people since she was a child, and of course she has good taste. Although she was not as professional as the Birdman Morgans, she felt an invisible aura as soon as she walked into the palace complex. Low profile and ultimate luxury. This place doesn't look like a rude pirate station at all. Instead, it looks more like the capital of a 1,000-year dynasty than Alabasta. Is this the Warhammer pirates? Enel says, they are taking a road with no future. What kind of road is it? Wai Wei thought with some emotion in her heart. At the same time, she also had more confidence in her heart. If she could get the favor of the Lord of the Night, Khazgaroz Orgrim, then her revenge would definitely be possible. Completed. Sand Crocodile. Alabasta will never belong to you after all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 673. Following the Sphinx and an arrow, Wai Wei arrived at the door of a courtyard. Enel said, "Here we are, Lord Orgrim is inside. If you want revenge, well, you should know how to do it." Wai Wei couldn't help but nodded. Although she felt that a character like Orgrim would not be attracted by her beauty. What's more, she didn't have a good reputation that was widely spread. What about Orgrim? Maybe they would notice her because of this kind of thing? But at this moment, she had made up her mind. Even if she sacrificed herself, she would drag Crocodile into hell. As soon as she entered the courtyard, Wai Wei saw several figures. The pirate Empress Bo Hancock is drinking juice and reading a book with an unknown beauty. Hancock's bounty has not increased much until now, 320 million belly. But the most famous thing is not the identity of a pirate, but the #1 beauty in the world. Just looking at Hancock, Wai Wei is already ashamed of herself. Compared with beauties of this level, there is a huge gap. All the things that had just been ignited in my heart disappeared. How could there be something like what I just thought about? And it wasn't just Hancock. There were a total of 3 women in this yard. Although they all took a glance, but with every glance, Wai Wei understood that she could not compare. Except for the woman who was reading and wearing a pair of flat glasses, which she did not recognize, she also recognized another woman. According to rumors, Ogre Mew's favorite woman, the former queen of Happy Street, the mistress of Avalon Island and the Warhammer pirates, Stussy. A series of big names have fallen, but Stussy has no bounty on her. But Wai Wei doesn't have any of it. Dare to underestimate this woman, just because she can get these titles, it absolutely proves that she is definitely not a vase with only face and figure. Even if she doesn't know Orgrim, Wai Wei also knows very well, like a person like Orgrim, with the vase around him, would never be able to get these titles, let alone become his favorite woman. In the end, her eyes were set on the legendary, most powerful, evil, the most ferocious pirate. The king of the night, Hosgarot Orgrim. He is about 3 meters tall, has short black hair, and has a heroic appearance, matching the photo of the bounty. It is said that he should be 40 this year. Much more, but he doesn't look like a middle-aged strong man, but rather like a young man in his 20s or 80s. The physique is quite strong, but not bloated, and the muscles are strong, but not too bulky. His eye-catching appearance is not so explosive. On the contrary, his muscles appear restrained. However, he always has an inexplicable sense of power. Just like looking at beauties such as Hancock and Stussy, at a glance, you can tell that they are not only it's just about his beauty. The same goes for Orgrim. Even if you don't know him, you can feel the power coming from him just by looking at him, and you will instinctively think that he is powerful enough. This king of the night, now with his upper body naked, wearing a pair of black trousers, and a pair of high-grade military boots. Overall, he does not seem to be a pirate, but looks like a brave warrior who came from the military. These are not out of the ordinary for Princess Wai Wei. She expected it, but what surprised her was what Orgrim was doing at this time. In her impression, this most powerful and evil pirate should be just like those exaggerated rumors on the sea. They should be drinking and having fun all day long, and they are so vicious that they will make people's heads fall to the ground at every turn. Before she came, she also thought that Orgrim should be like this. But after seeing Orgrim, something felt wrong. There is nothing to say about that powerful aura. But what he did at this time was a bit strange. He was holding a pair of big scissors and standing next to the Stussy queen. The two of them were pruning the glowing weeds that could be seen everywhere along the way. What is this? And judging from his expression, he is not very stiff, nor does he look like he is not angry or intimidating. Instead, he had a peaceful smile, and even looked a little gentle. What the hell is this? As if hearing the movement at the door, Orgrim, Queen Stussy, and others turned to look at the door of the courtyard. Oh, here we come, Enelu. It's been really hard on you on this journey, Hancock. Orgrim said hello to Enelu with a smile. Hancock also stood up immediately and said with a smile, come in quickly, I have prepared all the juice for you, hey. Robin also smiled and nodded at Enelu. It's pretty fast. I thought you would be out for 3 or 2 years, it's nothing miserable. On the contrary, it's a bit like a vacation, Lord Orgrim. Enelu first responded to Orgrim, and then quickly said thank you, Your Highness Hancock. Finally, he said to Robin, I originally thought it would take a long time, but things changed too quickly. Sphinx didn't have so many greetings to say, and she didn't leave Avalon. She jumped up to Stussy, shook her arm and said, Stussy, I want to eat oranges. Stussy rubbed Sphinx's head lovingly and said, okay, come with me. After chatting for a while, Orgrim looked at Princess Vivi, who was standing next to Enelu with a somewhat reserved expression and movements. There is not much deviation from the impression. She has long sea blue hair, delicate and beautiful face, and her body is full of youthful atmosphere. She is a nice little beauty, but Orgrim has no interest in her. I do have a good impression, but that's because of the story, my good impression of Wai Wei, and the rest is nothing. Is this Her Royal Highness Princess Nefertalavi? Orgrim said with a smile recently. Vivi's reaction was also very fast. Before Enel could speak, She made a noble salute naturally and said softly, Nefertali Vivi, met Lord Hosgarot Orgrim. Gee ha 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 ha, no need to be polite. Orgrim smiled and waved his hands. He was still very satisfied with Wai Wei's attitude. It's annoying for those who have no self-awareness. They have perished their country and their species, and they still have to act aloof and think they are superior. Noble, but actually worthless. But Vivi's posture was very upright. Looking at Orgrim's eyes, Enel knew that Lord Orgrim was very satisfied. He was also a little relieved. Orgrim put the big scissors in his hand aside, then beckoned, come on, everyone, sit down, everyone sit down. I have thought about many scenes when I saw Orgrim, evil and powerful. Maybe I would kneel at his feet, or even be humiliated, such as kissing his boots. He has even done some psychological construction for himself. No matter what happens, he must endure the humiliation and take revenge on Crocodile as his first priority. But I didn't expect that the meeting would be so peaceful. There is no pressure, just like visiting a respected elder. The elder seems to be very gentle. It was really beyond Wai Wei's expectation. But being able to have this kind of development is also a good thing for her. After sitting down at the table in the courtyard, Hancock quickly took out all the freshly squeezed juice and distributed it to everyone. We didn't talk about anything directly, but started chatting. Oh? My hawk? He left again, Orgrim asked in a funny tone while drinking juice. Yes, he left without saying a word. It's all Enel's fault, Sphinx said carelessly. Enel said a little funny, I didn't expect it, I just mentioned it casually. What did you mention? Orgrim asked curiously. It was said that he met two good kendo seedlings in the East China Sea, one was named Kuina and the other was named Roronozoro. When Mr. Mihawk heard this, he said that he would go to the East China Sea to visit, Enelu explained with a smile. There was a hint of surprise in Orgrim's eyes. Guyana, it turns out that this little girl is really not dead. As for Roronozoro, of course he knew who it was and shook his head in amusement. If Mihawk really went and took the person away, then I don't know what the stupid grandson of the landowner of Capana would do. The entire Straw Hat Pirates, the protagonists in this story, have been torn apart by Orgrim before they even go to sea. But Orgrim didn't feel guilty at all. What was there to feel guilty about? It's first come, first served. Is it because you are the so-called protagonist that I have to give way to you in everything? Non-existent. If that Luffy could really get lucky and run out of the East China Sea under such circumstances, it can only be said that he was really lucky. But if you come here and dare to provoke the Warhammer pirates, Orgrim will never give anyone face. If you need to deal with him, deal with him. After talking about some trivial matters, Wai Wei listened very seriously. She was secretly trying to figure out Orgrim's character and temper. From the current point of view, this legendary murderous evil pirate seems to be inconsistent with the rumors from the outside world. I vaguely remembered that my father once mentioned this man. At that time, this man had not yet made a fortune and had just gone to sea not long ago, but his father said that at that time, he could tell that this man would definitely be extraordinary in the future. As for the disaster in Alabasta more than 20 years ago, Wai Wei actually didn't know much about it. She wasn't even born at that time. And that's not a good story for Alabasta, and no one wants to mention it. Wai Wei, Orgrim called with a smile on his lips. Wai Wei was stunned for a moment, and then immediately said, Here, Lord Orgrim. Ha 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 ha, don't be so nervous, Orgrim waved his hand, and then asked in a gentle tone, Your Nefertali clan was once a descendant of 20 kings. Why didn't you go to Marijoya in the end? Wai Wei was not surprised by Ogre. Reem would know this. On the contrary, it would be strange if he didn't. Shaking her head, Wai Wei then said, There should be a lot of secrets in this, but I don't know about it, and my father has never told me about it. What she said was true. Cobra indeed never told Vivi about these things. Orgrim didn't suspect anything, nodded and said that's it, you must be young, and His Majesty Cobra may be planning to wait until you grow up before telling you, it's just that I never expected that such a big change would happen in Alabasta. My condolences. When Wai Wei heard this, the grievance and anguish in her heart seemed to come up all at once, and her eyes were filled with tears. But she didn't let the tears flow down. Instead, she took a few deep breaths and suppressed the tears again. Orgrim nodded appreciatively. He hated that kind of guy who only cried and complained. Your father, His Majesty Cobra, and I are old acquaintances. When Orgrim said this, he couldn't help but smile and said, old friend, when I was young, I often offended your father, gee ha 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 ha. Princess Wai Wei also forced a smile and said, my father has also mentioned you, Lord Orgrim, many times. He said that you had known him when you were young, but he often said bad things about you, but after that, he also lamented that he already knew everything, you would definitely become a powerful person, etc. Wai Wei was very honest, and Orgrim didn't mind this either. On the contrary, when he heard this now, he felt like he was recalling the glorious past. Yes, at that time, I was only a teenager, but now, I am already 40. More than 20 years have passed. Even though there was no real friendship between him and Cobra, there was even some quarrel. But now, the Cobra people are dead and the lights are out. When Orgrim recalls these things, he can't help but feel a little emotional and soft in his heart. Thinking of this, Orgrim patted Wai Wei on the shoulder and said, you can just stay here. Don't worry. In Avalon, no one dares to do anything to you. Even if the King of Heaven is here, I will give it to you. I behave myself, but Crocodile doesn't have the guts to grin at me. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading, hide, recommend, and share. Support Follow Novel Network, b.fallow.com. Original works, All a Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 674. Wai Wei listened to Orgrim's words, and nodded with some emotion at first, and then a look of perseverance appeared on her face. Lord Orgrim, although I don't know what you need from me on this trip, I must be of value to you, right? Wai Wei asked. Orgrim raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, you are very smart. Well, if I can, I want revenge on Crocodile. I want to take back Alabasta, clear the name of the Nefertari clan, Wai Wei said again. Do you want to take action against Crocodile? Mr. Hammer, leave this to me. I'm going to see how powerful his ancient weapon Pluto is. Is it as powerful as me? The Sphinx said excitedly. Are you Crocodile's rival? Orgrim couldn't help but ask with a smile. What is Crocodile? When I was a pirate, he was still a stinky younger brother, Sphinx said very confidently. If you place him somewhere else, maybe you can kill him, but if you're in Alabasta, it's a desert country. Enelu also spoke after him. Hello. Enel, don't think that just because you are a natural type, you can be a bastard. Do you want to compete? The Sphinx said angrily. Enelu scratched his head, quickly waved his hands and said no, no. When he went to sea, he followed the Sphinx. Before that, he had always been regarded as a person protected by the Sphinx. How could he fight against the Sphinx? Even if he felt that with his current strength, he shouldn't be defeated casually by the Sphinx like before. In fact, with Sphinx's strength, she is ranked among the best in the Warhammer pirates. Even though she looks like a little Lolita, she is actually extremely strong. If she really wanted to fight, Crocodile might not be her opponent. But in Alabasta, Orgrim would probably have a hard time dealing with him, he might even run away. Of course, it would be much easier if Orgrim used all his firepower, but while killing Crocodile, it is also possible to destroy all of Alabasta. Don't talk about the 4 emperors like Chinese cabbage, okay? Crocodile is about to become the Yonko. Orgrim said with a smile. The Sphinx glanced at Orgrim with some displeasure, thinking to himself, the one who least regards the four emperors as cabbage is you, Ogre. Reem. Wei felt a little hot in her heart at this moment. Listening to this, did she agree? But soon, a basin of cold water was poured on her head. Now is not the time, Vivi, Orgrim said softly. Wei's expression was a little stiff and she didn't know how to speak. Times have changed. The chaos and war among pirates in the New World, and the struggle for royal power have come to an end. Crocodile has chosen a good time. Now, we, the Warhammer pirates, have focused their main conflicts on they want to enter the New World and steal our interests. Naturally, we cannot let them succeed. Therefore, the next stage is the struggle with the Navy, and in this struggle, our Warhammer pirates alone is not enough. Yes, it's unreasonable. This is a matter for the entire pirate camp, Crocodile, among them, at least before this, he is useful to us. At the same time, if Crocodile is killed now, the newly rebuilt Yonko structure in the pirate camp will also collapse. After that, it will collapse again. Chaos may occur, or even cause chain reactions. This is not what I want to see now, Orgrim said earnestly. Although Wei felt a little disappointed, she also keenly grasped a few key points. If not now, what about later? Is it possible in the future? Although the desire for revenge is very fervent and impatient. But Wei also knows very well where her advantage lies, youth. She is still young, extremely young, even a little young. This means that she has plenty of time to wait for the opportunity of revenge. In fact, before this, she was really not in a hurry, thinking about finding a partner, strengthening herself, and then taking revenge. These take a long time. It was just that the powerful yet simple road and shortcut of Orgrim was here, giving her hope of revenge, so she became a little eager and impatient. At this time, a basin of cold water was poured on her, but Wei knew that she could wait. I can wait, Lord Orgrim, until you think the time is right, Wei said softly. Gee ha 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 ha, I like a sensible child like you. Orgrim laughed and said. After a slight hesitation, Wei asked again, so, what price do I need to pay? Actually, Wei also doesn't understand. What is it about herself that Orgrim values? Identity. As the last bloodline of the Nefertari clan? The orthodox royal family of Alabasta? If the Warhammer pirates help her defeat Crocodile and recapture Alabasta, they can naturally rule Alabasta, right? It should be this benefit, right? This benefit seems to be huge, enough for Orgrim to make up his mind. After all, Alabasta is a superpower with a long civilization and a huge population, and its military strength and quality are also very high. If the Warhammer pirates can get Alabasta, it will definitely be a big help. Wei is not opposed to this matter. First of all, as of now, her impression of the Warhammer pirates is quite good. Secondly, she understands very well that the world government is unreliable. Look what they did. It's nothing more than a verbal refusal to recognize Crocodile's rule over Alabasta. But he didn't say that he wanted to help her Nefertari clan recover. They even pretended that she, the subjugated princess, didn't exist and wanted to find a suitable noble from Alabasta. But now, these are of no use. Crocodile directly moved Alabasta to the New World. No matter how much the world government talks, no one in the New World will pay attention to them. Justice is unreliable, and Wei has already given up on the so-called justice. If she wants revenge, she has to rely on herself and the power of evil. She had learned what a dangerous place the New World was. Here, the pirates have the final say. Crocodile can bring Alabasta to the New World, but that doesn't mean that she, Vivi, can bring Alabasta back to its original sea area. Now Wei also understands that from now on, Alabasta will be a country in the New World. When you are here, you have to rely on pirates instead of the world government. Now, the most powerful pirate is right in front of her. How to choose? Does she need to think too much? So she didn't reject it? After killing Crocodile, she made the Warhammer pirates the actual rulers of Alabasta. Moreover, judging from what we have seen and heard along the way to Avalon and the Evernight Sea, the Warhammer pirates are simply not very good to the people under their rule. The various benefits provided are much greater than those in Alabasta. It's nothing more than abiding by the rules of the Warhammer pirates, which makes sense. What is there to exclude? Wei also knows that as a teenage girl, even if she succeeds in revenge, she may not be able to govern Alabasta, and she needs a solid backing. If it is Alabasta, then after retaking Alabasta, I am willing to lead Alabasta and join the Warhammer pirates, Wei said in a deep voice. Orgrim laughed and said, this is a good thing, but what I ask for is not this. Alabasta is indeed very good, but to me, it is just the icing on the cake, not particularly important. Wei was stunned for a moment. Isn't this it? What else could it be? What value do I have? What I want you to do is very simple. The first one, become my family. Orgrim said softly. Wei's expression changed slightly. Could it be that she really fell in love with my beauty? But before she could think about it, Orgrim smiled and said, I have one. My son's name is Andrest, and I want you to marry him. I have never seen Andrest, not even a photo. But Wei still knows that the King of the Night has a son. He seems to be about the same age as herself, right? These thoughts in Wei's mind, after staying for less than a second, Wei said without hesitation, okay, father. Father. The people of Orgrim are all stupid. Damn it, you changed your tune too quickly, right? Until now, Yamato has always called me uncle. And what you agreed to was too straightforward, right? At this moment, Orgrim's feelings for Wei were more than just good impressions. It's quite appreciated. This seemingly weak girl is decisive, determined, and has a strong character. Even if she is not good at strength and talent, in other aspects, if she is well cultivated, she will definitely have great achievements. Before, maybe she was led into a political idiot by that guy Cobra. But if she is placed under Beckman and trained for a few years, and she becomes the wise queen of Alabasta in the future, there will probably be no problem at all. Not only Orgrim was stunned, but Queen Stussy was also stunned. At the same time, Hancock, Robin, Enel, and Sphinx were also stunned. Damn, this time, the speed is quite impressive. Without any hesitation, you immediately considered Lord Orgrim as your father? I also admired this girl 207 in my heart. However, Wei was a little embarrassed when she changed her name to Orgrim, so she quickly waved her hands and said, ahem, what, wait until the matter is settled, then change your name. Wei still did not hesitate, nodded immediately and said, yes, Lord Orgrim. After a short pause, Orgrim continued, since you have no objection to the first thing, then the second thing, after you marry Andrest, I hope you can add the surname of my Kazigero's family before Nefertali's name, can you? Wei was really confused now. Does this matter have any significance? But doubts are doubts, but they are not incomprehensible. This kind of thing happens all over the world, especially in the families of big nobles. This phenomenon often occurs after various nobles marry. There are many great nobles with extremely long names. Metaphorically speaking, Kajgros Nefertali Karanda Ben Sphinx. If that were the full name of the Sphinx. Except for the 4 words Sphinx, every previous surname represents the splendor and honor of the Sphinx family. It represents the close relationship between her family and the other families. Represents marriage and bloodline. Therefore, this matter is not a particularly strange request in Wei's mind. However, for a pure bloodline member of the Nefertari clan like her, this would never happen. Only the top nobles like them give names to others. How could anyone put their name before the surname Nefertali? Not only does it not happen in her family, but in fact, it is impossible for the descendants of the 20 kings to have this situation. Just like Doflamingo, after hundreds of years, his Don Quixote family is still the Don Quixote family. I haven't heard of Doflamingo having any hidden name. He's called Don Quixote Cashgro Carandamoto Doflamingo. The descendants of the 20 kings are so noble, how can they put another family name before their surname, name? This is what makes Wai Wei surprised and strange. Does this make sense? But if there was any pride in the Nefertali clan before, now, she has no such thoughts at all. They are going to exterminate the whole clan, and they are still talking about this nonsense. Don't you think you can die quickly enough? Therefore, although she was surprised and puzzled, Wai Wei immediately said yes, Lord Orgrim. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: hide, recommend, and share. Support Follow Novel Network, b.fallow.com. Original works, All a Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 675. Seeing how quickly this girl agreed, Orgrim's impression of her became better and better. If before, Orgrim only regarded this little princess as a tool, now, it is no longer the case. Andrest needs a woman who can help him. Just like him and Stussy, even though Stussy won't be fighting outside. But the entire Warhammer Pirates family is taken care of by her, well, except for cooking. Orgrim's life was so easy because of Stussy's presence. She deserves a lot of credit. Yamato is a good girl, but Yamato is an extrovert. The help she can give Andrest is outside but not inside. As for Wai Wei, Orgrim thought that this little girl couldn't be of much help. After all, in her impression, Wai Wei is a very silly and naive little princess. But after the real contact at this time, he understood that Wai Wei was no longer the princess in the story. She may be naive now, or even still a little naive. But the shining point she showed has already appeared. These are her advantages, which can bring inner help to Andrest. That's pretty good, isn't it? Very good, Wai Wei. I can promise you that I will agree to Crocodile. Maybe you can even take revenge yourself in the future, Orgrim said with a smile. He never regarded Crocodile as his opponent. Crocodile's magnitude was not in his sight at all. Even if Crocodile is going to become some kind of Yonko, perhaps, this guy can have more use value. For example, after the war with the Navy, he can be left to the juniors like Andrest as a powerful enemy to train them. It's pretty good when you think about it. Princess Wai Wei was also very excited after hearing Orgrim's response. Finally, I finally heard this answer. The answer she was looking forward to, the answer she longed for. Orgrim spoke up and was willing to help her get revenge. Of course, it was at the right time. But that's enough. For this, even if you have to sacrifice everything, you will not hesitate. I have one last request. Orgrim said softly. Wai Wei immediately responded, Lord Orgrim, please speak. She has let go of everything. No matter what the request is, she can agree to it. Even if Orgrim asks her to give him 10 or 8 grandchildren, she is still willing. I want you to become a celestial dragon, Orgrim said with a glint in his eyes. Wai Wei. Well, Wai Wei's brain was confused at this time and she was a little at a loss. At the same time, she seemed to have realized why Orgrim valued her so much. It turned out that he valued her blood rather than Alabasta. May I? Orgrim smiled and said. Vivi was silent for a moment, and then said, I have no objection at all, as long as it can take revenge and wash away the name of the fool king of my Nefertali clan. No matter what it is, I can accept all the conditions, but Lord Orgrim, I don't want to deceive you. Although our Nefertali clan is also a pure descendant of 20 kings, it does not mean that with this bloodline, you can go to Tianlong Gren. At that time, we gave up this option for unknown reasons. Now, it is difficult to return to Marijoya, therefore, this matter cannot be handled just by agreeing to it. Gee ha 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 ha, I appreciate your candor, Wai, Orgrim laughed and said. Of course, even if your bloodline is pure, it doesn't mean that you can become a dragon if you want, and you can leave if you don't want to. Doflamingo's bloodline is also extremely pure, Rosin, and the same is true for Dit. What now? One is working as a pirate, and the other is imprisoned in Impelton. Going back to Marijo to be a Draco? What about dreaming? The same is true for the Nefertari family, especially now, the Nefertali clan has fallen into such a state that their country has been taken away, leaving only a lost princess. How could they just go back to the dragons just saying that they would go back? But, this matter is being handled by Ogre. He saw Orgrim reaching out to pick up the juice and drink it, and said with a smile, you don't need to worry about the things here, as long as you nod, it's not now, but when I finish some things after that, we can start arranging for you to become a celestial dragon of the Nefertali clan, and you don't even need to live in the birdcage with Marijoa to still be the queen of Alabasta. Okay, that's all I have to ask for. I'm very happy that you can agree to them all. In this case, from now on, you are a member of my Warhammer Pirates and a member of my Kazgarot family. You can shoulder the responsibility. My name is the name of the Kazgro family. No one dares to do anything to you on this sea, not even the world government, nor Crocodile. Congratulations, Your Highness, Wai Anilu said with a smile. But Wai could tell that before, Anilu would occasionally call her His Highness, but that was more of a personal quality and politeness. This time, he called her His Highness. More respect. Is this the name of the Kazgro family? But even so, Wai did not dare to be arrogant, and said with the same smile, thank you, Mr. Eniro. This time I came to Avalon, I sold myself and the Nefertali family completely. But Wai didn't have any reluctance or regret in her heart. She got more from Orgrim's generosity. In my heart, I am also full of gratitude to Orgrim. Okay, let's finish the business that needs to be said. Wai, we will be a family from now on. No need to be polite or reserved. The atmosphere in our Warhammer Pirates is very good. In the evening, I will introduce some more cotters to you, Orgrim said with a smile. Meanwhile, on the New World Hive Island. This is also the famous pirate paradise in the New World. A long time ago, in terms of reputation as a pirate paradise, it was no worse than Avalon. But now, Avalon is the pearl of the New World, and Beehive Island is still just a pirate paradise. There are many pirates on this island, and there is no fixed boss. In fact, there are very few big pirates who would seize the pirate paradise as their territory. Orgrim is an exception. But in the future, there would be one exception, and that would be the Blackbeard Marshal ID Teach, who later occupied Beehive Island. Of course, Teach has not yet made a fortune, he is still working under Whitebeard. Naturally, there is no owner on this island. Chaos and disorder are the attributes of all pirate parks. This place is just like Avalon back then, the island is full of chaos and disorder. Just walking on the street, it's not surprising if someone comes out to chop you after drinking too much. At this time, at the port, strong men with fierce faces were sitting in groups, bragging and drinking wine. After a while, a pirate ship slowly sailed into the port. There was a strong man with drunken eyes, picked up a machete, and walked towards the pirate ship, as if he was preparing to collect a protection fee or something. Sure enough, in ports all over the world, there are more or less such rules. The same was true for Orgrim's former hometown, Ogorin, the same was true for Avalon back then, and the same was true for Beehive Island. But before the strong man could take 2 steps, his companion grabbed him and said, "Are you crazy? You dare to offend anyone? Do you see the flag clearly? What kind of flag is there on Beehive Island? As he spoke, he looked at the flag. Then, he woke up from the drunkenness, and a cold sweat broke out all over his body. Don Quixote, the flag of the Don Quixote family. The Don Quixote family is rampant in the New World, and no one dares to offend it. Not only because this flag represents the face of His Majesty Shishibukitan Don Quixote da Flamingo. More importantly, it is, behind the Don Quixote family stands the real master of the New World, the Warhammer pirates. It is said that Don Quixote da Flamingo is the brother-in-law of the pirate overlord, Lord Khazgarot Orgrim, the king of the night. Who the hell can afford to offend him? He returned to the port and sat down dejectedly. These strong men of the evil party all acted as if they could not see the ship. It was impossible to collect protection money, and it was even possible to get close to it. Being blackmailed. This is really weird. What day is it today? Two groups of big shots are here, the strong man muttered unwillingly. Soon, Doflamingo's figure appeared at the port. But at this time, his image had greatly changed. In my impression, Doflamingo's figure is unrestrained, with a sultry pink flamingo feather coat, an open-buttoned white shirt, colorful tights, no socks, and a pair of beanies. Shoes, when walking, must be exaggerated and arrogant. This is the impression Doflamingo gives to the world. But at this moment, although Doflamingo still had his sexy pink flamingo feathers on his shoulders, he was wearing a black suit, very decent, with his hands in his trouser pockets as he walked, and there is no such arrogant facial expression. That's right, it's not like Doflamingo can't straighten his back or has any bone problem. He can definitely walk seriously. Before, he just wanted to be that way. But now, he seems to no longer maintain that posture. If that kind of fan was deliberately created to look like a gangster. Now, with his black suit and serious steps, coupled with his tall figure and handsome face, he looks like a pirate god. Perhaps what prompted Doflamingo to undergo these changes was the woman following him. Caranda Neiman, no, it should be called Khazgaro's Don Quixote Carandaniman now. But no one knows about this. Even on the reward order, it is still the violent female Carandaniman. The bounty is 937,800,000 Baileys. The previous name of King Kong Barbie seems to have disappeared with the awakening of her abilities. Neiman didn't care about her name, which was so unfashionable, and no one dared to call her the name Fierce Girl in front of her. At this time, Neiman was wearing a sportswear, following Doflamingo, looking around at the island. I haven't been here yet. It's a bit like Avalon many years ago, Neiman said softly. I have been here a few times. This is also a transit point for the devil fruit business in the dark world. The dark fruit that Master Chui asked me to find is now, as expected, on this island. Doflamingo smiled and said. Then, as if he noticed something with his eyes, he frowned strangely and said, there are people from the Whitebeard pirates on the island. After hearing this, Neiman followed Doflamingo's line of sight and saw a ship moored not far from the port. Looking at the flag, there was no doubt that it was the Whitebeard pirates. We now have no conflicts with the Whitebeard pirates. Don't provoke them. It's important to do business, Neiman smiled and said. Doflamingo also nodded and said with a smile, foo, that's right. The grudges between the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates have been settled with the end of the war. There is no need. They will not conflict casually when the two sides meet. But Doflamingo is still a little curious. Who is here? Phoenix Marco? Or Diamond Jose? I wonder if we will meet? Filu reminds you, 3 things about reading: hide, recommend, and share. Support Filu Novel Network, b.faloo.com. Original works. All you are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 676. At this time, I am in a dark building on Honeycomb Island. Blackbeard Marshal ID Teach, who will reach the top of the Yonko in the future and become the only dual-fruited user, is following the boss here and talking about something. And beside him, there was Marco the Phoenix. The dark fruit is right here with you, right? 5 billion Baileys, this price is already high enough, what else do you want? Do you look down on our white-beard pirates? Tiki said with a ferocious expression. He has been waiting for so many years, and finally waited for the dark fruit to appear. Tiki did not just sit back and wait for the white-beard pirates. He also borrowed the influence of the white-beard pirates. They have been secretly searching for the dark fruit. Not many people in the white-beard pirates know about this matter, and they don't even know what Teach is looking for. They only know that he seems to be looking for the devil fruit. There is nothing to be curious about, and no one explored anything. After so many years, Teach finally got the news about the dark fruit. Not long ago, this devil fruit was circulated to Beehive Island and was temporarily detained. After receiving the news, Teach immediately came here, even afraid that it was not safe, and even invited Marco to come with him. The relationship between Marco and Teach is quite good, and it is not a big deal. Recently, my father has also relaxed his resistance to the Navy and allowed the Navy to entering the depths of the New World. The Navy also wisely stopped provoking the white-beard pirates. Because of 620, the contradictions and conflicts between the two sides have also eased. If nothing happens, follow Teach and run away. A trip is not considered a favor, after all, his brother. At this time, Teach was very anxious. He had already raised the price to 5 billion belly, which was his savings over the years, but this devil fruit merchant was still he didn't let go. The anger in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. If it weren't for the fact that this businessman belonged to the Avalon Dark Group and had the aura of the Don Quixote family, he would have killed people and sold goods. But not now. If he really did this, it might trigger a conflict between the two big pirate groups. It's okay to fight and kill at sea, but going directly to someone else's shop to rob them would be a bit too much. Pirates also have unwritten rules. The development of the Fruit of Darkness at this time is also different from the original story. In the original story, Tikai's brain got hot and he killed Sachi. Now, due to the situation in the New World, he has more. I want to steadily obtain the dark fruit, and then no longer hide my abilities and bide my time, show off my abilities and methods, and try to see if I can use a more peaceful method to inherit the Whitebeard pirates. Since the battle for the throne of the New World ended after that, Dad's health is deteriorating. He has gone from his peak to decline. Maybe he is still very strong now, but the future is hard to say. After all, Dad is getting older, and Tikai feels in his heart that Dad may also survive. It won't be many years. Maybe, after 2 more years, after Dad realizes this, he will retire. Just like the Golden Lion, he will go away in style. By then, the Whitebeard pirates will need new leaders, such a person. But currently, there is no such person in the Whitebeard pirates. Marco may be good, but he has a more comfortable personality than his father. He had made insinuations before and asked Marco what he thought. Marco was completely there is no intention to become the second generation. In fact, this is indeed the case. Originally, Newgate was also planning to find an heir, but Marco had no intention of inheriting the Whitebeard pirates. In the end, Newgate got Potka Sid. Ace also knows that he has the blood of Roger, and the potential that Ace has shown is extraordinary. Therefore, Newgate plans to train Ace into a second generation. However, things backfired, and this became the root of the Whitebeard pirates' downfall. Now, Ace was taken to the East China Sea by Andrest, and his fate had already gone astray. There was no way Newgate would let him serve as his second generation. There is no one in the Whitebeard pirates who can really carry the cauldron. Teach also discovered this, so he was ready to use his strength. Instead of betraying the Whitebeard pirates and being hunted by people like Dad and Marco, he reorganized his Blackbeard pirates. Why don't you just stay honest for 2 more years, show your father your abilities, and then safely inherit the Whitebeard pirates and reach the top directly? Wouldn't that be nice? Even in the future, it will be reasonable to inherit Dad's fruit-shaking ability. But before that, the top priority is to get the dark fruit, and then highlight his strength, cry, and make his father look at him. Therefore, at this juncture, Teach does not want any conflict between the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates. In order to avoid causing too many variables, if we really can't control it and a full-scale war occurs. The Whitebeard pirates were broken up, his father was killed, Jensen's fruit was not obtained, and the inheritance he coveted was gone. What's more, he will definitely offend Khazgarot Orgrim by then, and whether he can survive in the new world in the future is a question. Look, what the arrogant red-haired Shanks looks like now. Teach didn't want to end up like Shanks, so he didn't want to provoke Orgrim at all in the short term. At this time, it is best to use peaceful means and directly buy the dark fruit. Sir, it's not that we don't want to sell it. 5 billion is indeed very exciting, but this devil fruit is not good. This is what Doflamingo-sama has personally explained. He should be arriving soon, so don't are you making things difficult for me? How about you wait and discuss it directly with Lord Doflamingo, the businessman also said politely. There was a ruthless look in Tikai's eyes. He was determined to get this fruit. Even if he had to change his plan, he would not hesitate to change his plan. He didn't want to end up in that situation, but it didn't mean that he was afraid. It became such a situation. If Teach had not had the courage, in the original story, he would not have dared to kill his companions and provoke Whitebeard, the strongest man. It is just that the benefits are not proportional. But the secret fruit is not as good as his ambition, dreams and forbearance over the past few decades were too important. For this, he paid all costs. Just when Teach was about to rob, the door of the exchange was opened. Turn back slightly looking at it, Tiki frowned again. Trouble is coming. Don Quixote Doflamingo. That's right, it was Doflamingo who walked in through the door. When he came in, he didn't recognize Teach, an unknown person. Instead, he saw Marco sitting nearby with a somewhat unhappy expression. Marco also saw Doflamingo and frowned slightly. What a rare visitor, Marco, why are you here? Doflamingo said with an evil smile on his lips. Marco didn't have a good impression of Doflamingo, but there was no conflict between the two of them, so there was no need to be rude. What's more, at this time, there is still something to do. So Marco put a smile on his face and said, of course I have something to do, and I want to buy a devil fruit from your store. Doflamingo felt a little uncomfortable, but he still said, what is this? You are talking about whether to buy it or not. As long as it is not too much, I will give it to you. I have long heard that Doflamingo is an all-rounder, and Marco has realized it now. After reaching out to stop hitting the smiling man, Marco's tone became a little more enthusiastic and he said, thank you so much. Teach didn't expect that things would go so smoothly, and he was relieved. Doflamingo waved his hand and then said to the businessman, what do these two want? Young master, this, if it's something else, forget it, what these two want is the dark fruit you told me about before, the businessman said with some embarrassment. Dark fruit, Doflamingo was shocked. Sure enough, this bad premonition happened. Seeing the change in Doflamingo's expression, Marco also knew that things would not go so smoothly, so he asked, yes? What's inconvenient? Doflamingo smiled, nodded, and said, if it's anything else, even if it's the natural type, I won't break my promise, but this dark fruit is a little special. Special? Marco murmured something strange. That's right, the dark fruit was handed down by Master Chui himself. We also searched for a long time before we found it. I came here this time to take this fruit back to Avalon and deliver it to Master Chui. Please give me your love. Ah, Doflamingo still said politely. Marco nodded. He didn't know that this devil fruit was very important to him. How important it is. But if Orgrim asked for it, they wouldn't be able to say anything else. I can only regret it. Tikai felt a strong urge in his heart. Orgrim wanted to secretly harvest the fruit. What does he need this ability for? First of all, it can't be for myself, then the most likely thing is, son. I heard that his son seems to have gone to sea now. It makes sense for Orgrim to pave the way for his son. In other words, once this devil fruit reaches Avalon, I may never have a chance again. After seeing Marco nod, Doflamingo also breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't take Tiki seriously and just thought he was the younger brother brought by Marco. If Marco is willing to understand at this time, there is no need for the two parties to conflict. So much the better. Doflamingo smiled and said to the merchant, go and get 2 rare fruits to give to the 2 distinguished guests, and get me the dark fruit by the way. Yes, young master. The businessman nodded quickly and said. Marco quickly waved his hand and said, no need, how can you be so polite? It makes me embarrassed. After saying that, he stood up and prepared to leave. Teach's eyes rolled around, and then he quickly grabbed Marco and said, Marco, it's inappropriate for you to do this. Young Master Doflamingo is willing to give it, but if we don't accept it, let's give him face. Where are they? What's more, they are just 2 devil fruits. They are not too important to us. Now the relationship between us is not hostile, right? Doflamingo looked at this guy with some surprise. It seemed that this was not Marco's younger brother. Hearing this, Marco thought about it for a moment, then nodded and said, okay, thank you very much, Doflamingo elder brother. You're welcome. It's long past time for us to communicate with each other like this, Doflamingo said with a smile. Soon, the merchant came with 3 devil fruits. He first picked up the dark fruit and said, my lord, this is the dark fruit you want. We. But before he could finish his words, Tikai suddenly went into a killing spree, took out the sword from his waist, and killed the businessman directly. At the same time, he stretched out his hand to grab the fallen dark fruit, and shouted. A voice said, Marco, let's go. Doflamingo and Marco were both shocked. Tiki, Marco said in shock and anger. Although he didn't understand why Tiki did this, at this moment, he couldn't think about anything. As soon as the blue flames on his body burned, he was ready to rush out with Tiki. Doflamingo brother's face was very gloomy at this time. Not only did he kill him in front of him, but he also wanted to steal the goods that Mr. Chui wanted. There was no politeness at all. He reached out and grabbed the 5-color thread in the air and shot it out. Stop them, blockade the port, and no one is allowed to leave, Doflamingo roared. Falu reminds you, 3 things about reading: hide, recommend, and share. Support Falu Novel Network, b.faloo.com. Original works, all a sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 677. Tikai grabbed the dark fruit, pushed open the door, and rushed out without caring about Marco's life or death. But don't worry about it. Did Marco, the phoenix, call in vain? After eating Doflamingo's 5-color thread, Marco had no problem at all and wanted to rush out. Teach is also a ruthless and decisive person, and he will not hesitate once he takes action. As soon as I went out, I was ready to eat the dark fruit first. No matter whether I can run out or not, if I eat this dark fruit, no one will get it. Even if he died here, it would be considered as fulfilling his wish for decades. Thinking of this, Teach picked up the devil fruit and was about to stuff it into his mouth. But before he could finish this action, a strong wind hit him, and he only had time to cover it with his arm. Domineering energy. Before he could even see his figure clearly, Tikai felt a pain in his waist, and the powerful force surged, and he couldn't stop it. The figure was blown away like a cannonball. The dark fruit in his hand could not be held firmly and flew away. That figure was none other than Neiman standing at the door. She felt that the room was a little dark, so she did not go in. The result was good. Within a few minutes, something like this happened. Seeing Tikai rushing out, she took action without much thought. Although she didn't know him, at this time, if there was a mistake, there would be no mercy. After knocking Tiki away with one blow, she did not pursue him. Instead, she moved quickly and directly caught the dark fruit in her hands. At the same time, Marco also rushed out. After seeing this scene, Marco also cursed in his heart. Tikai, you are so damn successful that you fail more than you can accomplish. Even if you want to take action, why not tell me in advance? And what's the point of being intercepted as soon as you step out? Dry. Now it's okay, the Don Quixote family has been offended, the Warhammer pirates have been provoked, and they even got rid of the things, all in vain. Can Marco not be angry? However, the Great Fire returns to the Great Fire, and decades of brotherhood are here. Now that everything has been done, Marco is not a person who procrastinates. No matter what, he will grab the things first. As for how to explain to the Warhammer pirates and Dad after returning, big deal, he should go to Avalon himself to make amends. The left and right are just devil fruits, which have given the Warhammer pirates enough face and steps. With the current situation, Orgrim will not really start another war. With his mind made up, Marco rushed towards Neiman without saying a word. Marco, Neiman said with a hint of anger in her eyes. You Whitebeard pirates have all been defeated, and your father didn't even say that he would fight against us. Are you, a birdman, still so arrogant? Phoenix Seal, Marco didn't hesitate at all, and kicked out Neiman. In the process, the solace of his feet quickly turned into sharp claws, and the armed domineering energy covered them, making him powerful and powerful. Iron nuggets and black gold, Neiman's reaction speed was also very fast. She didn't move on the spot and put on a parrying posture. Her armed domineering energy instantly covered her. The next second, Marco kicked him up. Neiman didn't even move and just took it. He withstood the blow. Then, Neiman's originally slender arm suddenly swelled up. Muscle-bursting fist and iron cannon. Neiman shouted loudly. As she finished speaking, she struck hard and punched directly towards Marco's chest. Wherever the wind of the fist passed, the air was broken, making an explosive sound. Marco, with a calm look in his eyes, he didn't care about the punch at all. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the devil fruit in Neiman's other hand. However, Neiman didn't give him this chance. At the same moment, he raised his hand and grabbed it. He threw the devil fruit out. It flew past Marco's figure and fell into the hands of Doflamingo, who came out of the door. The next moment, Neiman's powerful punch directly hit Marco's chest. They were all blown up. When Marco saw this, he didn't resist anything. He followed the force and flew backwards. He turned around and pounced on Doflamingo again. At the same time, the bursting chest burned with regenerative flames. Doflamingo's hand grasping the dark fruit, he pulled it in the air with one hand, and the figure took off on the spot, directly dodging Marco's attack. To be honest, if he was the only one here today, let alone the hidden big boss Teach, even if it was Marco, he can't beat it. But fortunately, he brought Neiman with him today. Neiman's strength is definitely top-notch. It's much safer with her here. After starting Marco's attack, Doflamingo cursed angrily. Is this how the Whitebeard pirates do things? Doflamingo, I treat you with courtesy, but you are killing people and stealing goods from me. Marco, here it's over. We, the Don Quixote family and the Warhammer pirates, need to ask you, the Whitebeard pirates, for an explanation. Marco also cursed secretly in his heart, I don't want to. What the hell is that bastard Teach? but in the final analysis, Teach is one of our own, and Doflamingo and the others are outsiders. Even if Tiki was wrong, at this moment, Marco could only help Tiki. This is not just because of the family ties of the Whitebeard pirates. It can be said that all pirate groups are like this. The younger brother got into trouble, and if the older brother doesn't step in to take the blame, who the hell will follow you in the future? As for the truth, although the truth is not on Marco's side, how can any pirate really be reasonable? The same would be true for the Warhammer pirates. If Neiman and Doflamingo snatched Marco and Teach today, Orgrim will definitely stand up for them and support them. Of course, after this incident is over, even if it is to apologize to Whitebeard, you should do it. This is also the performance of protecting the calf. But when we come back, we must deal with them well. At the same time, Teach turned over and stood up, spit out a mouthful of old blood, rubbed the injury on his waist randomly, exerted force with his feet, and rushed towards Doflamingo in the air. At the same time, he shrank the cuff in his hand, and a claw blade popped out. This was the weapon that caused injuries to Shank's eyes back then. It's enough to prove that even if he doesn't get the dark fruit, his Tikai's strength is still first rate. Marco, there's no need to talk nonsense to them. After I get the dark fruit, I will personally go to Avalon and kowtow to the Hammer Lord to make amends. I can kill or behead him, Tiki shouted loudly. As he finished speaking, Tiki grabbed Doflamingo with a claw. Doflamingo had a fierce light in his eyes and kicked out. He was armed and domineering, it broke out in an instant, and then Doflamingo was shocked. This guy who had never caught his eye before, and even thought he was Marco's follower, was so strong. The force coming from his legs was too much for him to bear. You know, no matter how hard he is, he has still entered the threshold of the top masters, King Shichibukai. While he was shocked, Marco also joined the battle again on the other side, and his arms had turned into blue flames and burned. With its wings, it flapped and rushed over. Hateful, Doflamingo was secretly annoyed. After only a moment of fighting, he already understood that the situation here was not good for them. Neiman may not be weaker than Marco, but Marco has no problem at all if he wants to entangle her. After all, that guy couldn't be beaten to death if he didn't prepare something like the Sea Tower Stone to specifically restrain him. As for myself, it seems that I am no match for this guy named Udik. And he also had to protect the dark fruit from being snatched away. It was inconvenient to hold it in his hand, and his strength was already inferior. Now that he had an extra fruit, he was still limited to 3 points. If this fight continues, it will definitely be detrimental to them. Roll, Neiman cursed angrily, and her figure was like a cannonball, hitting Marco's chest directly. With a strong blow, Marco, who had just taken off, was thrown to the ground again. Neiman naturally understood that the current situation was they were at a disadvantage. This unknown guy who appeared out of nowhere seemed to be unusually strong, and Dover was having a hard time. So after landing, Neiman had a fierce ping-pong match with Marco while shouting, "Dover, Fu, you go first, be sure to take the dark fruit back to Avalon and give it to your elder brother." Doflamingo glanced at Neiman and said, "I'll leave this to you." He didn't hesitate at all. Tianyaksha's advantage came into play instantly. He released his struggle with Tikai. With a tug with one hand, the figure lifted up again. After a few breaths, he flew quickly towards the distance. Tikai. Chi could only stare when he saw this, because he couldn't fly. He didn't care about Neiman's safety. First of all, Neiman was strong enough. The outcome of this battle was unknown. Even if he lost, he still had a chance to evacuate. This time, regardless of these things, even if Marco and Teach team up to catch Neiman, what will happen? Give them 10 courages, how dare they kill Orgrim's sister? As long as they dare to do it, there is no way for them to survive even to the ends of the earth and the ends of the world. Orgrim would have killed all the Whitebeard pirates if he hadn't pulled them out and skinned them. He, the king of the night, doesn't have to do anything anymore. So Doflamingo doesn't worry about this at all. It's just a bit useless and annoying. In the end, because of his own lack of strength, he had to rely on his own woman to help with the rear. This is crazy. All in all, I feel quite unhappy. At this moment, Tikai felt as if he had eaten shit. He was extremely aggrieved. Not only had he offended the Warhammer pirates, but he had not yet obtained the dark fruit. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he turned around and rushed towards Niemann, who was fighting fiercely with Marco, and shouted, "Marco, you go after Doflamingo, I'll deal with this violent woman." As soon as he finished speaking, Tikai stabbed Niemann's body with his claws. Marco also wanted to use the opportunity to distance himself, but Niemann's eyes were red at this time, and the ferocious aura on her body was getting heavier and heavier. There was no need at all. In order to resist and dodge Tikai's attack, Marco completely miscalculated Niemann's reaction. When he moved slowly, the door opened wide. Niemann grabbed his head directly. The next second, blood burst out, and Tikai's strike, the sharp claw blade, instantly penetrated Niemann's shoulder. Niemann, however, didn't care about the injury at all. She grabbed Marco's pineapple head, and the powerful force comparable to Orgrim burst out and directly lifted Marco up. And then quickly hit the ground, Wangzhou. With one blow, Marco's head exploded. Tichi looked at the scene and felt weak in his heart. Damn it, even though Marco is dead, no, but the pain is still there. Damn it, Orgrim's sister is so cruel. He couldn't be caught by her like this. After knocking Marco out with one blow, Niemann stepped on Marco's back and directly suppressed Marco. At the same time, she punched Tikai with her backhand. Not daring to go head-to-head at all. In this brief moment of fighting, Tikai had already understood what kind of master this Kuranda Niemann was. To put it simply, she and her big brother, who is the strongest in the world, are on the same path. Just didn't have a hammer. The fight was a head-on confrontation. When fighting against such people, if you don't have the confidence to absolutely suppress them in the areas they are good at, then don't be the one to show off. Otherwise, the only one who will suffer is yourself. Tikai felt that he was very strong, but in terms of head-to-head confrontation, he did not dare to confront Niemann, who defeated Marco with 3 punches and 2 kicks. So I chose to avoid it without hesitation. After forcing Tikai back with one move, Niemann did not pursue him at all. She punched the ground with her backhand, knocking over Marco, who had just struggled. Marco also felt bitter in his heart. Wrong, the rhythmize, there can't be such a big gap in strength between him and Niemann. But from the beginning, the rhythm of the battle was wrong. He was led astray, so that now the rhythm was in Niemann's hands, and he was beaten so embarrassed. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading, hiding, recommending, and sharing. Support Follow Novel Network, b.fallow.com. Original works, All a Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 678. It was getting darker, and Beehive Island was already in a mess. The pirates from all walks of life also got into chaos, fighting each other crazily, fighting for ships to go to sea. The island was burning with raging fire, a hellscape of chaos and fighting. Next to the ruins of a half-collapsed house, Niemann was covered in blood. Her posture was no longer that of a beauty, but she had returned to the state of King Kong Barbie. Strong muscles bulged all over his body. There were large and small wounds on his body, and he was bleeding. But if you take a closer look, you will find that her injuries are constantly healing, and the muscles are rapidly proliferating to fill the injuries. Awakening, Niemann's devil fruit ability awakens. Not far away, Teach and Marco's expressions were also very ugly. Tikai did not suffer any particularly serious injuries, but his chest was slightly collapsed. I guess a few of the ribs on his chest were broken by any man, right? There was a trace of dried blood at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. As for Marco, he still looked like he had no injuries at all, but his face was very ugly. In fact, he took the most beatings in this battle. That Karandanaman was like crazy, beating him more and more fiercely, and she still grabbed him, the Phoenix Infinite Hammer with the power of regeneration. Even if he had to suffer a strong attack and severe injuries from Teach, he looked like he would not hesitate. Marco knew very well that this was because he could fly and Niemann was forcibly stopping him. Although it seemed that he and Tikai had the upper hand now, and they should be sure to defeat Niemann in the battle. If they fought for a while, the situation would quickly tilt towards them, and victory seemed to be waving to them. But Marco and Teach's moods were both hard to describe and extremely aggrieved. In battle, you may have won, but it doesn't mean anything. You still have to win 2 against 1. In terms of strategy, when Niemann stopped the two of them, they had already lost. Don Quixote and Doflamingo ran away without getting the devil fruit. This means that this battle is of no benefit after all. On the contrary, it has also stirred up a new major conflict between the Warhammer pirates, the Don Quixote family and their Whitebeard pirates. Marco was very upset. What is going on? I just went out for a spin, why did it become like this? I didn't get any benefits, and I even got into trouble. This guy Tikai is so impulsive. Why didn't you notice that he had such a bad temper before? Marco, what do you do now? Capture her and take her back, Tikai asked in a deep voice. Marco hesitated for a moment, shook his head and said, no, if you do this, it will definitely cause a war. Tikai was also extremely irritable. After all the beatings, he had offended so many people, but in the end he didn't even get a hair. If he catches Karandanaman and takes him back now, it should be considered the best solution. Is this a good plan? Firstly, you can use her to threaten Orgrim in Hosgarot, and maybe exchange it for the Fruit of Darkness. Secondly, even if it causes a war, with Orgrim's sister in your hands as a hostage, the King of the Night will probably throw a wrench into his trap. Once a fight breaks out, the initiative will be in their hands. If she is let go now, with her physical fitness, it will probably take less than a few days for the injury to heal. At that time, the Warhammer pirates' fighting power was not reduced, and they had no scruples in fighting. At this moment, Teach felt that Marco was really not suitable to be a captain. He was hesitant and worried too much. More importantly, as a pirate, he is not enterprising enough. To put it more bluntly, it means lack of ambition and being content with the status quo. Niemann was also thinking about the situation at this time. According to Doflamingo, it was definitely impossible for Marco to catch up with him now. At the beginning, he grabbed the rhythm, punching Teach and stepping on Marco. However, Teach and Marco were both very powerful opponents, and it didn't take long to break up the rhythm. From that moment on, Niemann was already at a disadvantage. It was all due to his own ruthlessness and powerful awakening power that he dragged Marco and Teach here. In terms of combat, he was at a disadvantage, but from a strategic perspective, he had achieved his goal. Protected the evacuation of the dark fruit. Now, it seems that there is no point in fighting anymore. Thinking of this, Niemann's explosive muscles quickly began to contract, and after a while, she returned to her beautiful posture. Ice. Marco, we, the Warhammer pirates, have taken note of what happened today, and there will be rewards. It's all over now, farewell. Niemann said in a deep voice. As soon as she finished speaking, she did not wait for Marco and Teach to speak. She maintained a high degree of alertness and vigilance in her heart. On the surface, she turned around and left as if nothing had happened. She knew that in this state, she could not reveal a trace. Cowardice and weakness. Even if you want to evacuate, you must evacuate openly. The more this happens, the more likely it will be to make the other party hesitate and worry. Sure enough, as soon as Neiman was about to leave, Tikai had a trace of evil in his eyes and was ready to intercept. But Marco finally said, "Let her go, maybe things are not that bad." There was a surge of anger in Tikai's heart. "Do you really want to start a war?" Marco glared at Teach hard, and then added, "at the juncture of the Navy's large-scale entry into the New World. Speaking of which, Marco's status is quite high. At least he can look at these problems from the perspective of a New World pirate. Teach is not so grand. He only thinks about his own 3-acre land. He didn't care at all about the life and death of others. He even thought with some malice in his heart that if the Navy entered the New World, the whole New World would be in chaos and the major forces would be reshuffled. Only then could he, Marshal ID Teach, seize the opportunity, taking advantage of the chaos to rise up. But at this time, he also knew that it was really unjustifiable for him to suddenly take action and make the situation like this. Marco might not know how much resentment he had towards himself. Before he got the secret fruit, he needs the protection of the Whitebeard pirates, and he has no intention of falling out with the Whitebeard pirates. Maybe there is still a chance to inherit. Therefore, at this time, he does not dare to continue to argue with Marco. "I'm just a little unwilling. After getting into such a big trouble, I still haven't received my things. When I go back, I don't know how to explain it to my father," Teach said somewhat unwillingly. Seeing this, Marco relaxed a little, and then said, "You are no longer reckless this time, you have really caused a big trouble. I don't know what happened. Anyway, my brain got hot and I took action. I don't like the Warhammer pirates," Teach said quickly. After he said these words, Marco nodded, looking very understanding. Yes, the Whitebeard pirates, indeed the Warhammer pirates are not pleasing to the eye. From a perspective, it is true that the grievances between the two sides have been settled and the outcome has been decided. There should be no conflict. But this is all because Orgrim and Newgate are suppressing it. The Warhammer pirates can say that it is better. A winner naturally has the attitude and heart of a winner. As for the Whitebeard pirates, because they lost to the Warhammer pirates, their father was knocked down from the strongest position, and they also fell from the strongest position. The position of the strong pirate group has fallen. Even a lot of territory has been robbed, and the living space has been squeezed into the front line of the confrontation with the Navy. Traverse, yes, the Whitebeard pirates have traversed in the New World. In the past, it was the boss of heaven, the second boss of earth, and the third boss of the Whitebeard pirates. Now that the Warhammer pirates are stepping on their heads, who can feel better? So even though the war has ended, in fact, the people of the Whitebeard pirates have a lot of resentment towards the Warhammer pirates. The same goes for Marco. Once Tiki's reason came out, he understood a lot. He just thought that Tiki just had a hothead and couldn't stand this. Angry, and with the devil fruit as a trigger, he took action. Indeed, he really didn't regard the devil fruit as the main reason, and never thought about it that way. After all, to the Whitebeard pirates, it was just a devil. It's just a fruit. Teach shouldn't be so angry with Zyajia. But he doesn't know how important that devil fruit is to Teach. It's the ambition and dream he's been waiting for decades. Don't say he started to grab goods from the Warhammer pirates. Even if he started to kill Whitebeard, I'm afraid he would dare to do it ruthlessly. Those bastards really make people angry, but you are still too impulsive this time. We are in big trouble. Let's go back to Dad to report the situation first. If it doesn't work, I will go to Avalon to apologize, Marco spoke. After hearing this, Teach felt a little relieved. Marco was definitely angry with himself before, but when he said this now, although his tone was strong, there was not much anger in his words. The Whitebeard pirates, after all, are a pirate group with this kind of brotherhood and the kindness between father and son at its core. No matter how popular it is, so what? There is only one rule on their ship, that is, they cannot kill their companions. As long as Teach does not step on this line, it will be okay. Maybe after he goes back, there will be people cheering him on. No need, one person does the work and the other takes responsibility. As for this matter, Teach, caused it. I dragged you Marco into the water. How can I have the nerve to ask you to go to Avalon to apologize to those bastards? If you go, will I be able to live with it? When I go back and see my father, I will see what he makes up his mind. If he doesn't want to fight, I will go to Avalon myself and kowtow to admit my mistake, Teach said without hesitation. What he said was not a lie, but the truth. The dark fruit must have been sent to Avalon now. Now that the matter has come to this, he does not want to give up. He will not enter the tiger's den. How can he win the tiger's cub? So he is indeed planning to go to Avalon to make amends or something else. In short, he is going to fight for it. The risk is very high, and it is very likely that the secret fruit will be lost. Without even being able to see his face, he would be beaten to death by that Hosgarot Orgrim. But, Teach still wanted to go. He felt that if he took a step back here, all the years of waiting, patience, dreams, ambitions, and even the qualifications to be a pirate would be gone. From now on, Tarakai would never be able or worthy to think about those ambitions. He will turn into a truly confused ordinary pirate. Rather than end up like this, he might as well just die. Go fight for this dark fruit and practice your ambitions and dreams. Marco's original anger and annoyance had already dissipated a bit, and now listening to Teach's words, the last bit of annoyance in his heart also dissipated. He was silent for a moment, then patted Teach on the shoulder and said, "Why are you thinking so much? Go back and report the matter to Dad first. Maybe you don't have to go. That Orgrim is not a good-tempered person. There might be a fight. Then we will fight him again with real swords and guns. Don't be afraid of wearing shoes if you are barefoot." After hearing this, Teach grinned and said with a smile, "Thieves, ha 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 ha. Okay, I will be the first to go." He knew that this had completely dispelled Marco's anger. "Next, hurry back and report the situation to your father to see how this situation will turn out. Beat. It's best not to fight yet. Let me go to Avalon first and struggle for the last time." Teach had already ignored everything about life and death. He is fearless in front of the secret fruit. If he really died in Avalon, he would be able to inspire the Whitebeard pirates to share the same hatred and an atmosphere of unity, just as repaying his father for taking care of him for so many years. That's right, this bastard who single-handedly destroyed the Whitebeard pirates in the original story is actually thinking like this at this moment. If you don't succeed, you will be successful. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading, hiding, recommending, and sharing. Support Follow Novel Network, b.fallow.com. Original works, all you are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 679. Avalon in the Evernight Sea. Orgrim was holding a phone bug in his hand at this time and was talking to the phone bug. Not far away, Doflamingo was sitting on the sofa, holding a teacup in his hand, but his expression looked slightly embarrassed and uneasy. "Well, I get it. It's fine as long as it's nothing. That guy in Dover has a bad conscience now. It's useless what I say to him. You have to come back in person to comfort him." "Gee ha 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 ha." Orgrim laughed. "It's just a tactically correct choice. What's there to worry about? If I could fly, I would just leave him behind without even looking back," Neiman said on the phone. This voice naturally reached Doflamingo's ears. The awkward and uneasy expression on Doflamingo's face dissipated a little. He knew, Neiman was telling him on purpose, asking him not to be so entangled. Of course, if this happens, no matter whether he can win or not, Doflamingo feels that he will definitely give Neiman the throne. Yes. This is a matter of man's dignity. Even if the tactics were correct this time, he left the woman behind and ran away, and the woman was still his wife. I felt uncomfortable no matter what. Gee ha 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 ha, please pay attention to safety on the road and come back as soon as possible, Orgrim smiled and said. Without saying anything else, the two of them quickly hung up the phone bug. After putting the phone bug away, Orgrim looked at Doflamingo in a funny way. It's been a long time since I've seen Doflamingo in such a tangled, hesitant, uneasy, and embarrassed state. After all, this guy usually looks like he has a chance to win and is confident. Now that I saw him, Orgrim is also a little funny. Okay, you didn't do anything wrong, the tactics are correct, and the results are correct, what's there to worry about? Orgrim teased with a smile. Doflamingo's mouth twitched slightly, and then asked Master Hammer, do you think I can still be saved in terms of strength? No, Orgrim said without hesitation. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment after hearing Orgrim's crisp answer, and then said with a wry smile, can you comfort me at least? Why should I give you unnecessary hopes and ideas? Dover, you don't have to worry about this at all. No one is perfect. There are powerful people everywhere, but there are very few people who can do things like you. Don't be obsessed with it. Orgrim waved his hand and said. I'm just a little unwilling, Doflamingo said after a moment of silence. Orgrim looked at Doflamingo with some emotion. This guy is very powerful in everything, but there are some flaws in his strength. Although he is strong, he is not ridiculously strong. But then again, if you, Doflamingo, know everything, your skills, character, strategy, and strength will be invincible. So is there any way for us people to survive in the sea? So Orgrim thinks this bastard is just being pretentious. Seeing that Orgrim didn't speak, Doflamingo smiled inwardly, feeling that he was being a little pretentious. Putting this topic aside, he asked strangely, Master Hammer, when did you first notice this guy named Marshall ID Teach? I've never heard of him before, and there's not even a bounty on his head. I really thought he was a minion. After Doflamingo brought the dark fruit back, he told what happened. He also learned from Orgrim's mouth that this dark fruit was the bait prepared for Teach, waiting for him to take the bait. I just didn't expect that he would bite the hook in advance. Fortunately, he didn't let him eat the bait, otherwise Orgrim would have had to spend a lot of effort. What surprised Doflamingo was that Orgrim seemed to have known about Teach for a long time. Red Hair Shanks, that guy had a fight with the Whitebeard pirates in the first half of the Grand Line. Do you still remember this? Orgrim asked. Doflamingo frowned slightly, feeling that he had an impression, but he couldn't remember such a trivial thing. So he shook his head and said, I have a slight impression, but I don't remember it. After all, it was a small matter, and it happened many years ago, but the scar on Shanks's eye was caused by Tiki. Later, at the Roaring Island, during the Devil Fruit Fair, I saw this guy named Tiki. He seemed to be looking for something. I was somewhat interested in him at that time, and later I investigated this guy, Orgrim said softly. A flash of understanding flashed in Doflamingo's eyes. So Master Hammer had noticed this inconspicuous character so early? Suddenly, he seemed to have discovered another huge gap between himself and Orgrim. What happened so many years ago seems outrageous now, but Mr. Chewy seems to have started making plans since then. Is it so scary? How did he know that Orgrim was just making excuses? Do you want me to tell you that I saw it from reading comics? Anyway, no one would really take this matter seriously, and Doflamingo certainly didn't take it seriously either. He has great strength, but doesn't show it at all. He has been hiding on that guy's ship in Newgate for decades. He has been a pirate for so many years without even getting a bounty, and he behaves like a gangster. Such a person, there must be something wrong, Orgrim grinned. After a short pause, before Doflamingo could speak, Orgrim continued, there is no doubt that he is a top hunter. In order to wait for his prey, he can patiently wait for his prey. This is also the case. Proved that his prey, that is, the ambition, it is worth waiting for decades. Ambition and patience are enough to become a great person. As for skills and strategies, etc., I can only see part of it now. That guy didn't hesitate to rob you. He has proven that at the critical moment, he is also a decisive and ruthless person who doesn't look forward or backward. His skills are up to par, it also shows that he is selfish, only cares about himself when doing things, and only has eyes for himself. It depends on how he will deal with the strategy after he returns this time. If he dares to come to Avalon, then this guy will be a big deal. Courage is also the best. In this way, he has all the characteristics of a hero and a tyrant. What do you think of such a person to us? Potential rivals and enemies. Doflamingo was silent for a moment and said, "Gee ha 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 ha, once he has caught my eye, he is no longer a potential. As for enemies and opponents, he is not qualified yet." Orgrim laughed. "What is that?" Doflamingo thought for a while and asked in confusion. "Can any of the Whitebeard pirates and the Sons of Newgate be better?" Orgrim not only didn't answer, but actually asked. Orgrim's words were like an enlightenment, which made Doflamingo freeze there. It seemed that, no. Having fought against Tiki in person, even for just a few moments, Doflamingo knew that Tiki was definitely a top player. But this kind of person is unknown in the Whitebeard pirates. After hearing Orgrim's analysis of him just now, all of a sudden, Doflamingo really couldn't find anyone in the Whitebeard pirates who was more powerful than Tiki. "Marco, no way." "You mean?" Doflamingo reacted a little and whispered softly. Orgrim, on the other hand, picked up the dark fruit on the table, played with it in his hand, and said with a smile, "This guy, in my opinion, is the key to the Whitebeard pirates. If I want the Whitebeard pirates to be at my mercy, he is indispensable. The biggest failure of Newgate's life was that he didn't take good care of people. There is something wrong with his vision. I have to say that Newgate's vision is a bit embarrassing." He regarded Ace as his successor. As a result, Ace's personality was out of touch with impulsiveness. In the end, not only did he fail to inherit the Whitebeard pirates, but he brought down the entire Whitebeard pirates. He regarded Teach as his own son, but was tricked to pieces by Teach. For so many years, Orgrim didn't believe that Newgate really didn't notice Teach's strength and so on. It's just that this guy has never faced it seriously. In the end, it was the famous filial son sword Great Vortex Spider Skjard. After being fooled by Sakaski with a few words, he turned around and he gave his father the unrivaled swordsmanship of the filial sun sword. It would not be an exaggeration to call him the greatest swordsman in the world. After all, my hawk even touched Newgate's hair during the battle on the top. It's a stick, isn't it? Skjard's backhand is a penetrating wound. Knocked the strongest man into confusion. You also said that he is not the best swordsman? Generally speaking, these are all problems with Newgate's vision, but in the final analysis, it is a problem of character. He is strong on the outside and soft on the inside, too soft-hearted. But for this kind of thing, the eldest brother should not laugh at the second brother. Orgrim is not hard-hearted when it comes to his own people. This is both good and bad. Doflamingo nodded, feeling that what Orgrim said made sense. "So what do we do?" Doflamingo asked. "How to do it? The Whitebeard pirates dare to provoke us like this. If I, Orgrim, had no temper, would he really think I was a living bodhisattva?" Orgrim said in a serious tone. "Yes, he is planning to use the dark fruit to catch the ambitious Teach and use it for him. But it does not mean that he can expose this matter with a smile. 833. Still the same sentence, Orgrim is also very domineering. What I give you is yours. If I don't give it to you, you can't steal it. If you dare to steal it, then you must be prepared to pay the price. Order the 3 armies, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th legions of Avalon, to prepare for war. Enel and Sphinx will go to sea immediately. From now on, clean up all the Whitebeards in the Evernight Sea and our territory. The ship carrying the flag of the pirate group is ready for an all-out war. Orgrim said in a deep voice. Doflamingo and everyone were dumbfounded, and quickly said, Master Hammer, this level is not appropriate, isn't it? If we really fight, the navy will probably laugh out loud. Orgrim laughed and said, Gee ha 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 ha, don't worry, that old guy from Newgate won't fight with us. If at this time, we fight Orgrim and the Warhammer pirates. If they are not protected, the navy and the Warhammer pirates will attack from both front and back, making the Whitebeard pirates history in minutes. Newgate didn't believe in the integrity of this bastard Orgrim, especially this time they were at fault first, and it was Orgrim's right-hand man Doflamingo and his sister Coranda Neiman. In this case, Orgrim really has the possibility of going crazy. Moreover, everyone knows that this bastard has been flirting with the navy and the world government for a long time. What if they collude together? This isn't really big news. So Newgate will most likely not fight. For the sake of this momentary anger and conflict of spirits, the lives of the entire Whitebeard pirates were put on the line. If it were a young Whitebeard, he might do it, but Whitebeard is old now. In his heart, what he was fighting for was no longer his morale, but the future of the Whitebeard pirates. Otherwise, when the war is going on, he will not talk about the new era and there will be no ship that can carry me. He will definitely lead the Whitebeard pirates in a bloody battle with the navy to the end, displaying the majesty of Whitebeard. Instead, as the captain, he protected his sons and evacuated. If it's true, is he crazy? Doflamingo thought for a while and asked again. Orgrim said with a hint of anger in his eyes, don't think that just damn Newgate will go crazy. If I go crazy, even myself all scared. This is the power of youth. Orgrim dares to fight this battle of spirits. But Newgate may not dare to fight, underscore. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: hide, recommend, and share. Support Feeler Novels Net, b.faloo.com. Original works, All a Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 680. The atmosphere in the New World suddenly became tense. The long-awaited struggle between the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates has become intense again. From time to time, you can see the Whitebeard pirates ship fighting with the Warhammer pirates ship on the sea. The smell of war gradually spread out. For a time, people on the sea were scattered and everyone was in danger. I am afraid that the sea, which has not been calm for a few days, will once again set off huge waves. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but it was the day Doflamingo and Neiman clashed with Marco and Teach. The news of the world is also staring at Beehive Island. Therefore, the news of the world immediately reported the conflict between the two parties exactly as it was. This time, the source of the conflict was found. It turned out that the Whitebeard pirates wanted to steal the Warhammer pirates' goods. Marco, the captain of the first team, led his men to fight with Don Quixote, Doflamingo, and Coranda Neiman. It seems that, looking at this posture, the conflict between the two pirate groups is about to break out. Marine Headquarters, Marineford. The warring States Marshal was looking at the newspaper in his hand. He was also a little annoyed. The Navy's intelligence department was so stupid. Sometimes, he even had to get key information from newspapers on such important matters. What the Marshal did was really frustrating. Do you think there is something wrong with Orgrim and Newgate? Making such a big fuss over a devil fruit, Marshal Sengoku said with some annoyance. Doflamingo thought that if the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates went to war, the Navy would be the first to laugh out loud. I don't know, but Marshal Sengoku did nothing at all. It's good to prepare for participating in the war. But thinking about it carefully, Sengoku thinks it's good. They should go and fight. It's better to beat the brains out. It will consume a wave of pirates' internal strength, and it will be more convenient for the Navy to enter the New World. However, the cautious Warring States Marshal felt that this was not a conspiracy of the pirates, right? They used the two sides to launch a war as a cover, recruited their subordinates, and assembled the fleet. In the end, the two of them worked together to end the Navy in one go. That's really bad. 250. With Kuzan and Polisalino alone, it's not enough to control the New World. It's really a fool's errand to resist the attacks of the two big pirate groups. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more the Warring States Marshal felt that this matter was not impossible. Maybe Orgrim and Newgate are just playing the Warring States period. After all, this happened so unexpectedly. Two of the world's top pirate groups are about to launch an all-out war because of a devil fruit. Damn it, it feels outrageous just thinking about it. So at this moment, the Navy did not laugh out loud as Doflamingo thought. On the contrary, they were all extremely nervous, fearing that this was a conspiracy hatched by two old yinbai. Something is indeed wrong. It happened too suddenly. Orgrim's temper should not be so bad. Boss Zifa sat on the sofa and said softly. Today is different from the past. Orgrim may not have been so irritable before, but he is now the pirate overlord, the Dark King of the New World. He will not allow anyone to challenge his authority before a full-scale war breaks out with our navy. Even if this person is Whitebeard, Jun thought for a while and said. After she finished speaking, the big guys in the Warring States Marshal's office also fell silent. Yes, at Orgrim's current level, he would never allow anyone to challenge his pirate authority. Because he wants to seize the leadership of the pirate camp this time and fight with their navy. Therefore, it is not incomprehensible even if such a situation and current situation arises, in which we must first calm down the domestic situation in order to resist foreign aggression. In other words, is this war really possible? Garp touched his chin and said in disbelief. After all, this fuse is a little too out of the ordinary. A world war caused by a devil fruit? We all should have known a long time ago that war can be so incredible sometimes, and things will come unexpectedly, right? Great Staff Officer Ahe said in a very calm tone. After a slight pause, she smiled again and said, but I think that maybe it won't really start a war. Newgate is not Orgrim. Do you think Whitebeard will bow his head? How can this be? Garp retorted without hesitation. Why is it impossible? He is no longer the strongest in the world. He has lost to Orgrim. Bowing to Orgrim is not shocking news. At the same time, Newgate should also understand that Orgrim wants to establish his power. No one is allowed to speak against him. If he dares to sing and fight for this moment, the Whitebeard pirates will really have no way out. He is old. If he can't bear this tone, if he is not mad at Orgrim, he should understand that if he doesn't lower his head, the Whitebeard pirates will be finished, Consultant Ahe said with certainty. Everyone fell silent after what Senior Counselor Ahe said. It sounds like this is the case. That's Whitebeard. Will he really bow his head? But soon, Sengoku, Garp and Zifa felt that Newgate would bow his head. The reason is not those messy analyses, but in one sentence, he is old. As people get older, they have more worries, especially Newgate, who is too partial to his sons. He could die, but his sons would definitely be killed. Orgrim is not a soft-hearted guy. Newgate would probably not pin this kind of thing on the illusory mutual appreciation and fighting friendship between him and Orgrim. No matter what, let's deal with it first. It's not a bad thing if they fight. Maybe we can fish in troubled waters, Ask Uxiao to move Marineford to the New World. After they finish fighting, they find that our navy is ready to go. It's easy for them. Marshal Warring States suddenly smiled and said. That's right, no matter what, let's inform Kuzan and Porisalino first to prepare for the situation. Big Brother Zifa nodded and said. But the others also knew that Marshal Warring States was telling a joke. The navy is not yet ready to move its headquarters to the New World at any time. At least, we have to wait for Kuzan. We have to finish the matter with Porisalino. However, judging from the current progress, it is almost there. In the New World, Newgate's white whale Moby Dick is on board. At this time, Newgate's eyes are staring at the figure kneeling in front of him. Teach. Marshal ID Teach was a son that he had noticed very early, but never paid much attention to. Now, this son has caused a big disaster. Even this, it will bring disaster to the future of the entire Whitebeard pirates. He angered the king of the sea. He was a crazy guy who couldn't even offend himself. Newgate sighed a little in his heart. His thoughts suddenly returned to the time when he said goodbye to Roger more than 20 years ago. What is the will of D in Roger's mouth? Teach carries it with him. Is this will? Newgate didn't understand and didn't need to understand. Anyway, he wasn't interested. He withdrew his gaze from Teach and glanced at the people surrounding the deck. They looked slightly excited and even a little bit excited. With an expression of expectation, Newgate felt a little disappointed. Except for Marco and a few other captains, the rest seemed to be looking forward to this kind of war. They didn't seem to realize that they were already old. The Whitebeard pirates, in danger. For a time, no one in the entire regiment could take on the heavy responsibility of captain. Prosperity and decline, Newgate thought with displeasure in his heart. Dad, did you do it with them? I didn't get a good beating last time, a pirate boy shouted loudly. Then, many people followed suit. That's right, Dad, take back all our original territory. At worst, if you fight with them, no one is afraid of death. Newgate looked at these sons who were clamoring for war, and he felt relieved and regretful. Fortunately, they were courageous and refused to admit defeat. Unfortunately, no one took up this burden. If Te has a successor, he will not hesitate to pick up Kongyunkai and fight to the death with Orgrim. But now, no, he wants to leave vitality for the Whitebeard pirates while he can still suppress it. You have to stay here and find someone who can take over. No. Don't start a war easily, Dad, Marco said in a deep voice. Team leader? Are you afraid of it? A pirate kid couldn't help but ask. Marco said in a deep voice, it's not a question of whether you are afraid or not. If we start a war like this, we will be attacked from both sides. That guy Orgrim is so vicious. Who knows? Meeting, will he collude with the navy? How to spell? What to do? Do you have to endure this tone? Another pirate said. Sometimes, pirates are so unreasonable. They were obviously the ones who started the trouble, but now it seems like Orgrim is bullying them. However, this is a pirate, so how can you make sense? Newgate looked at the scene and felt a little complicated. Marco still had a pattern and vision. But the problem is, Marco can't do it, he can only be regarded as a silver medal. He did not inherit his own advantages, but he learned all his shortcomings. Kind-hearted and soft-handed. Dad. Everyone, Tichi, who was kneeling on the deck, suddenly shouted, attracting everyone's attention to himself. Newgate also looked at Tichi's bastard son again. This is something caused by my Tiki, and it should be solved by me. Dad, please let me go to Avalon. I'm going to apologize to that Orgrim. Teach glanced at everyone first, and then focused on Newgate. Newgate was also a little surprised at this time. Teach. He did not follow Tikai's topic, but instead asked Tikai, your strength, can you catch up with Marco? Newgate also heard what Marco said. Teach is very strong, not even weaker than himself, maybe a little stronger. He can force Don Quixote and Doflamingo back. Although Newgate never thought Doflamingo was a powerful guy, this was enough to prove that Teach was among the top masters. Tikai didn't have anything to hide at this time, and he also knew that it couldn't be hidden. So he nodded without hesitation and said, "That's about right. Almost okay, damn it, if I start to threaten, Marco can pin him down to the ground and beat him. Teach is so swollen. It's not that he is really invincible, it's mainly because he knows everything about Marco, while Marco has almost no knowledge of his strength. When the action begins, I have a 3-point advantage." Even over the years, he has often estimated the strength and fighting qualities of the top masters. Teach knows the strength of many people, but few people in the sea know how ruthless he is. This is the advantage. So why don't you show it? Newgate asked again. Teach had already prepared a set of words, and said a little coyly, "I'm afraid, Dad, you want me to be the captain of the second team, brothers on the ship, there are so many powerful people, and it seems that I am not the least of them." Newgate nodded first, and then asked in a deep voice, "What about now?" Now, Ticky's acting skills began to explode, his expression became slightly gloomy, and he said with annoyance in his eyes, "Now, our white-beard pirates are no longer what they used to be. If I keep hiding them, there will be no way for us to survive on the sea. Ah, Dad. I want to capture that devil fruit. That's what I think. With the power of nature, I can become stronger, can protect everyone." After a slight pause, Tikai softened his tone again and said, in a pretending to be embarrassed originally, "I was thinking that if I got the fruit, I would tell my father when I came back that you would be promoted to my second rank. Captain of squad, what? Then," he said in a discouraged tone, "but it's all my fault that I couldn't hold back my anger for a while and made things so bad. So Dad, let me go to Avalon. We can't fight now, but it's still suitable for us to fight." I have to admire Teach's understanding and knowledge of Newgate. In just a few words, Newgate's mood was completely changed. He knew what Newgate was lacking now, and he was there. Show this _follow reminds you, 3 things about reading Union Set Symbol Store, recommend, and share, support follow novel network, b.fallow.com original works, all.